So, have you ever wondered if those ancient texts sitting on dusty library shelves are more than just books? What if they're actually precise, step by step manuals for total human optimization? Well, today we're looking at a text that is exactly that. We're going to explore a source that maps out a literal step by step ascent from basic physical discipline all the way up to complete mental liberation. I mean, think about it. Is yoga just about physical flexibility, or is it a stepping stone to something much deeper? Because in today's world, we usually just see yoga as a gym workout, right? Something to stretch the hamstrings. But our source material today reveals that those physical postures, they're merely the ground floor of a towering structure meant to completely transform the human mind and spirit. To really get into this, we are looking directly at the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. This was originally authored by Yogi Swatmarama and translated by Pancham Sin. And what's fascinating here is that Swatmarama frames Hatha Yoga not as the end goal itself, but as a literal staircase leading directly to the ultimate pinnacle of mental clarity, a state he calls Raja Yoga. By the end of this explainer, you're going to understand exactly how the physical body is used to unlock the highest states of the mind, following the exact logical order laid out by these ancient practitioners. Okay, so here is our logical path today. Step 1, mastering asanas. Step 2, breath and cleansing. Step 3, awakening inner energy. Step 4, reaching samadhi. And finally, we'll wrap up with a quick summary of the journey. We're moving straight from physical posture to spiritual liberation. Let's dive in. Starting right at the base with step 1, mastering asanas, the physical preparation. Chapter 1 of our source makes it abundantly clear that physical postures are merely the foundation. It says a yogi should practice in a solitary place, completely free from disturbances, and the goal here is absolute steadiness, not just flexibility. Listen to this, because the text gets super practical here. It explicitly lists 6 causes that absolutely destroy yoga: overeating, overexertion, talkativeness, strictly adhering to arbitrary rules, like, say, taking a cold bath every single morning regardless of your health, being too much in the company of men, and unsteadiness. But on the flip side of that scale, the 6 causes that bring speedy success are courage, daring, perseverance, discriminative knowledge, faith, and aloofness from company. It really goes to show just how grounded and real-world this advice actually is. So how does the source actually define these physical postures? Well, asana is called the first accessory of Hatha Yoga. It's practiced to gain steady posture, health, and a real lightness of body. Think about a simple, everyday example. Say you're sitting at your desk, trying to focus, but your chair is just impossibly uncomfortable. What happens? That tiny, constant inconvenience draws your mind completely away from your work, right? The exact same principle applies here. If your physical position isn't comfortable and rock steady, your mind is going to be constantly distracted from contemplation. Essentially, the body has to be mastered just so it can be forgotten. Moving right up the staircase to step 2, breath and cleansing, purifying the system. In chapter 2, the entire focus shifts away from the external body to internal purification. Once your posture is steady, you have to regulate the air inside the body. And that brings us to pranayama. The text defines pranayama as a properly regulated form of the otherwise irregular and hurried flow of air. And Swatmarama makes a really fascinating claim here. He says that because disturbed respiration directly disturbs the mind, intentionally restraining your breath allows you to achieve mental stillness. It's basically a direct feedback loop. When the breath is calm, the mind becomes calm. When the breath wanders, the mind wanders. So the yogi restrains the breath specifically to achieve a state of complete mental motionlessness. But there's a catch. Before that deep breathing can even happen, the system has to be clean. The source outlines the shat karma, which are the 6 cleansing duties. Things like dauti, basti, and niti. However, the text makes a really important distinction here. You only actually need to do these 6 acts if you have an excess of fat or phlegm. It's honestly exactly like clearing out the plumbing in a house before you turn on the main water supply. If the pipes are already clear, you don't need to flush them. Now, once the system is totally clean, the practitioner jumps into the specific breathing techniques. The source breaks this down into 3 fundamental steps. First, paraka, which is inhaling and filling up the lungs. Second, kumaka, which is retaining or holding that air inside. And third, recheka, which is exhaling the air. To put that into practice in a technique called Surya Badana, the yogi slowly draws in air through the right nostril, retains it to the absolute utmost limit, and then slowly lets it out to the left nostril. This intense, deliberate control is exactly what steadies that erotic mind of ours. All right, we are ready for step 3, awakening inner energy and directing the vital force. As we move into chapter 3, the text frames this phase as the process of unlocking dormant internal potential, using that very breath we just learned to control. Here, the source introduces the concept of Kundalini. It describes it as the chief support of all yoga practices. It's conceptualized as a sleeping energy tightly coiled up like a serpent right at the base of the spine. According to the text, just as the chief of snakes supports the earth, the Kundalini supports all yoga practices. This sleeping power literally has to be awakened, often with the help of a teacher, so it can pierce through internal knots and travel upwards. But how do you actually move that energy? Well, the yogi uses highly specific tools. The text details physical locks, or bandhas, such as the Jalandhara bandha in the throat, the Uddiyana bandha in the abdomen, and the Mula bandha at the base of the pelvis. By physically contracting these specific areas of the body, the yogi effectively seals the breath in and forces that awakened energy straight upward into the central channel, which is known as the sushma. And that incredible upward movement leads us right to the top of our staircase. Step 4, reaching samadhi, the ultimate state. Chapter 4 is where everything, the physical postures, the breathing practices, those energetic locks, where it all culminates. This is the realm of Raja Yoga, the final destination. The text has this absolutely beautiful way of describing it. It says, as salt being dissolved in water becomes one with it, so when Atma and mind become one, it is called samadhi. Think about this in a real-world sense. If you stir a spoonful of salt into a glass of warm water, it eventually just disappears, right? You literally can no longer separate the salt from the water. They are completely unified. In the exact same way, the source explains that when the mind and the soul become entirely one, with all desires and random thoughts completely ceasing to exist, that perfect equality, that is samadhi. Now, this ultimate state doesn't just happen overnight. The source breaks it down into 4 distinct stages. First is Arambha, the preliminary stage where the body literally feels divine and glowing. Second is Gata, the state of a jar, where the breath becomes deeply stabilized. Third is Parachaya, where the yogi experiences profound internal sounds and a deep joy. And finally, Nishpati, the consummate stage, where the practitioner goes beyond all physical bounds and enters a state of absolute, total liberation and stillness. Let's take a step back and look at the whole picture with a summary of the journey. The staircase is complete, and we've traversed the entire manual. Just to do a really quick recap so we can lock in this flow. First, asanas are used not for fitness, but to build a perfectly steady, pain-free posture. Second, pranayama and the shatkarma cleansing duties purify the body's internal channels and deeply calm the breath. Third, mudras and bandhas are applied to awaken and direct that dormant kundalini energy upwards. And finally, all of this preparation leads to samadhi, where the mind completely dissolves into the soul just like salt in water. The physical body has successfully unlocked the spiritual mind. I want to leave you with this incredibly powerful final thought straight from Svatmarama. He writes, the yogi engaged in samadhi is overpowered by none. They are no longer affected by heat or cold, pain or pleasure, or the daily chaos of life. This ancient manual shows us that mastering the body isn't just about physical health. It is the absolute first step in constructing an unshakable, liberated mind. So, knowing that your physical posture is just the ground floor, how high are you willing to climb to discover the ultimate potential of your own mind?